Bhagwate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Dhananjana Shalakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasme Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manushyam Sagadana Namaha Bhagavatam. Jai Shri Gurudev, Jai Shri Prabhupada, reading from Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 35. Lord Shri Krishna said, O Arjuna, you should not show mercy by releasing this relative of a Brahmana, Brahmabandhu, for he has killed innocent boys in their sleep. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The word Brahmabandhu is significant. A person who happens to take birth in the family of a Brahmana but is not qualified to be called a Brahmana is addressed as the relative of a Brahmana, not as a Brahmana. The son of a high court judge is not virtually a high court judge. But there is no harm in addressing him High Court Judge's son as a relative of an honorable justice.
Would
Of
you
the
mind sharing the verse on the screen?
Is my screen not shared? Sure.
I see just the database. Oh, okay. Try. Now I see the murder note.
Okay. Therefore, by birth, only one does not become High Court Judge, so also one does not become a Brahmana simply by birthright, but by acquiring the necessary qualifications of a Brahmana as a High Court judgeship is a post for a qualified man. So also the post of a Brahmana is attainable by qualification only. The Shastra enjoins that if good qualifications are seen in a person born in a family other than that of a Brahmana, the qualified man has to be accepted as a Brahmana. And similarly, if a person born in the family of a Brahmana is void of Brahmanical qualification, then he must be treated as a non-Brahmana, or in better terms, relative of a Brahmana. Lord Shri Krishna, the supreme authority of all religious principles, the Vedas, has personally pointed out these differences and he has explained the reason for this in the following shlokas. Text 36. A person who knows the principles of religion does not kill an enemy who is careless, intoxicated, insane, asleep, afraid, or devoid of his chariot. Nor does he kill a boy, a woman, a foolish creature, or a surrendered soul. An enemy who does not resist is never killed by a warrior who knows the principles of religion. Formerly, battles were fought on the principles of religion and not for the sake of sense gratification. If the enemy happened to be intoxicated, asleep, etc., as above mentioned, he was never killed. These are some of the codes of religious war. Formerly, war was never declared by the whim of selfish political leaders. It was carried out on religious principles free from all vice. Violence carried out on religious principles is far superior to so-called non-violence. The violence carried out on religious principles is far superior than so-called non-violence. A cruel 37. A cruel and wretched person who maintains his existence at cost of others' lives deserves to be killed for his own well-being. Otherwise, he will go down by his own actions. Shilpa put, a life for a life is just punishment for a person who cruelly and shamelessly lives at the cost of another's life. Political morality is to punish a person by death sentence in order to save a cruel person from going to hell. Krishna. Then a murder is condemned to death sentence by the state is good for the culprit because in his next life he will not have to suffer for his act of murder. Such a death sentence for the murderer is the lowest possible punishment offered to him. And it is said in the Smriti Shastras that men are punished by the king on the principles of life for life. are purified for all their sins, so much so that they may be eligible to be promoted to the planets of heaven. According to Manu, the great author of civic codes and religious principles, even the killer of an animal is going to be considered a murderer because animal food is never meant for civilized men, whose primary duty is to prepare himself for going back to Godhead. Important. He says that in the act of killing an animal, there is a regular conspiracy by the party of the sinners. For all of them are liable to be punished as murderers, exactly like a party of conspirators who kill a human being combinedly. He who given permission, he who kills the animal, he who sells the slaughter animal, and he who cooks the animal, he who administers distribution of the foodstuff, at at last he who eats such cooked animal food are all murderers, and all of them are liable for punish to all of them are liable to be punished by the law of nature. When it says he who administers distribution of the foodstuff, is it someone who sees or someone who is the manager?
Someone who is the manager.
Okay. No one can create a living being despite all advancement of material science, and therefore no one has the right to kill a living being by one's independent whims. For the animal eaters, the scriptures have sanctioned restricted animal sacrifice only, and such sanctions are there just to restrict the opening of slaughterhouses and not to encourage animal killing. The procedure under which animal sacrifice is allowed in the scriptures is good both for the animal sacrificed and the animal eaters. It is good for the animal in the sense that the sacrificed animal is at once promoted to human form of life after being sacrificed at the altar, and the animal eater is saved from grosser types of sins eating meat supplied by organized slaughterhouses, which are ghastly places for breeding all kinds of material afflictions to the society, country, people in general. The material world is itself a place always full of anxieties, and by encouraging animal slaughter, the whole atmosphere becomes polluted more and more by war, pestilence, famine, and many other unwanted calamities. Text 38. Furthermore, I have personally heard you p- promise Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer of her sons. Text 39. This man is an assassin and murderer of your own family members. Not only that, but he has also dissatisfied his master. He is but the burnt remnants of his family. Kill him immediately. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The son of Dronacharya is condemned here as the burnt remnants of a family. The good name of Dronacharya was very much respected. Although he joined the enemy camp, the Pandavas held him always in respect, and Arjuna saluted him before beginning the fight. There was nothing wrong in that way, but the son of Dronacharya degraded himself by committing acts which are never done by the Dvijas or the twice born higher caste. Ashwathama, the son of Dronacharya, committed murder by killing the five sleeping sons of Draupadi, by which he dissatisfied the master Duryodhana, who never approved of the heinous acts of killing and the five sleeping sons of the Pandavas. That means Ashwatthama was an assaulter to Arjuna's own family members, and thus he was liable to be punished by him. In the Shastras, he who attacks without notice or kills from behind or sets fire to another's house or kidnaps one's wife is considered condemned to death. Krishna reminded Arjuna that these facts so that he might take notice of them and do the needful. Text 40. Srila Sutta Goswami said, although Krishna, who is examining Arjuna's religion, encouraged Arjuna to kill the son of Dronacharya, Arjuna, a great soul, did not like the idea of killing him. Although Ashwatthama was a heinous murderer of Arjuna's family members, Srila Prabhupada's purport. Arjuna was a great soul, undoubtedly, which is provided here also. He is encouraged here and personally by the Lord to kill the son of Drona, But Arjuna considered that the son of his great teacher should be spared, for he happens to be the son of Dronacharya, even though he is an unworthy son. Having done all sorts of heinous acts whimsically for no one's benefit, Lord Shri Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly just to test Arjuna's sense of duty. It is not that Arjuna was incomplete in sense of his duty, nor was Lord Shri Krishna unaware of Arjuna's sense of duty, but Lord Shri Krishna puts to test many of his pure devotees just to magnify the sense of duty. The gopis were put to such tests as well. Srila Prahlad Maharaj also was put to such a test. All pure devotees come out successful in respective tests of the Lord. And okay, text 41. Prabhu, it's gonna end in 1 minute. So after this shloka, I'll just rejoin. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. After reaching his own camp, Arjuna, along with his dear friend and charioteer Sri Krishna, entrusted the murderer onto his dear wife, who was lamenting for her murdered son. Srila Prabhupada's purport: the transcendental relation of Arjuna with Krishna is the dearmost friendship. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord Himself was claimed Arjuna as his most dear friend. Every living being is thus related with the Supreme Lord by some sort of affectionate relation, either as a servant, or as a friend, or a parent, or object of conjugal love. Everyone thus can enjoy the company of the Lord in the spiritual realm if he at all desires and sincerely tries for it by the process of bhakti yoga. Read, read to now. I don't know how to go back to Zoom. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Text 42. Are you here? Yes, you are. Srila Sutta Goswami said, Draupadi then saw Ashwatthama, who was bound with ropes like an animal and silent for having enticed the most inglorious murder. Due to her female nature and due to her being naturally good and well behaved, she showed him due respects as a Brahmana. Srila Prabhupada's purport: Ashwatthama was condemned by the Lord himself, and he was treated by Arjuna just like a culprit, not the son of Brahmana or teacher. But when he was brought before Srimati Draupadi, she, although grieved for the murder of her sons, although the murder was present before her, could not withdraw the due respect generally offered to Brahmana or the son of a Brahmana. This is due to her mild nature as a woman. Women as a class are no better than boys, and therefore they have no discriminative power like that of a man. Ashwatthama proved himself to be an unworthy son of Dronacharya or of a Brahmana, for this reason he was condemned by the greatest authority, Lord Sri Krishna. Yet a mild woman could not withdraw her natural courtesy for a Brahmana. Even to date, in a Hindu family, a woman shows proper respect to Brahmana caste, however fallen and heinous a Brahma Bandhu may be. But the men have begun to protest against Brahma Bandhus who are born in families of good Brahmanas, but by action are less than Shudras. The specific word used in the shloka is Vamaswabhava, mild and gentle by nature. A good man or woman accepts anything very easily, but a man of average intelligence does not do so. But anyway, we should not give up our reason and discriminatory power just to be gentle. One must have good discriminatory power to judge on a thing on its merit. We should not follow the mild nature of a woman and thereby accept that which is not genuine. Ashwatthama may be respected by a good natured woman, but that does not mean that he is as good as genuine Brahmana. Text 43. She could not tolerate Ashwatthama being bound by ropes, and being a devoted lady, she said, release him, for he is a Brahmana, our spiritual master. As soon as Ashwatthama was brought before Draupadi, she thought it intolerable for a Brahmana should be arrested like a culprit and brought before her in that condition, especially when the Brahmana happened to be her teacher's son. Arjuna arrested Ashwatthama knowing perfectly well that he was the son of Dronacharya. Krishna also knew him to be so, but both of them condemned the murder without consideration of being the son of a Brahmana. According to revealed scriptures, a teacher or a spiritual master is liable to be rejected if he proves himself unworthy of the position of the guru or spiritual master. A guru is also an acharya, or a person who has personally assimilated all the essence of the shastras and has helped his disciple to adopt the ways. Ashwatthama failed to discharge the duties of a brahmana or teacher, and therefore he was liable to be rejected from the exalted position of a Brahmana. On this consideration, both Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna were right in condemning Ashwatthama. But to a good lady like Draupadi, the matter was considered not from the angle of Shastric vision, but as a matter of custom. By custom, Ashwatthama was offered the same respects as offered to his father. It was so because generally the people accept the son of a Brahmana as a real Brahmana by sentiment only. Factually, the matter is different. A Brahmana is accepted on the merit of qualification and not on the merit of simply being the son of Brahmana. But in spite of all this, Draupadi desired that Ashwatthama be at once released, and it was all the same a good sentiment for her. This means that in a devotee of Lord can tolerate all sorts of tribulation personally, but still such devotee are never unkind to others, even to the enemy. These are the characteristics of one who is a pure devotee of the Lord. Text 44. It was by Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. Purport. Dhanurveda, or military science, was taught by Dronacharya with all its confidential secrets of throwing and controlling by Vedic hymns. Gross military science is dependent on material weapons, but the finer than that is the art throwing of arrows saturated with Vedic hymns, which act more efficiently than gross material weapons like machine guns or atomic bombs. The control is by Vedic mantras or transcendental signs of sound. It is said in the Ramayana, O Krishna, that Maharaj Dashrath, the father of Lord Sri Ram, used to control arrows by sound only. He could pierce his target with his arrow by only hearing the sound without seeing the object. So, this is a finer military science than that of a gross material military weapons used nowadays. Arjuna was taught all this, and therefore Draupadi wished that Arjuna feel obliged to Acharya Drona for all these benefits. And in the absence of Dronacharya, his son was his representative. That was the opinion of a good lady, Draupadi. It may be argued why Dronacharya, a rigid Brahmana, should be a teacher in military science, but the reply is that a Brahmana should become a teacher regardless of that of what his department of knowledge is. A learned Brahmana should become a teacher, a priest, a recipient of charity. A bona fide Brahmana is authorized to accept such professions. 45. He, Dronacharya, is certainly still existing, being represented by his son. His wife Kripi did not undergo a sati with him because she had a son. The wife of Dronacharya Kripi is the sister of Kripacharya. The wife of Dronacharya Kripi is the sister of Kripacharya, a devoted wife who is, according to revealed scriptures, the better half of a husband, is justified in embracing voluntary death according to her husband if she is without issue. But in the case of the wife of Dronacharya, she did not undergo such a trial because she had her son, the representative of her husband. A widow is a widow only in name if there is a son of her husband existing. So, in either case, Ashwatthama was a representative of Dronacharya, and therefore killing Ashwatthama would be like killing Dronacharya. That was the argument of Draupadi against the killing of Ashwatthama. Text 46.
I'm gonna take a couple.
Definitely, Prabhu. Give me a second.
O most fortunate one who know the principles of religion, it is not good for you to cause grief to glorious family members who are always respectable, and worshipful. Srila Prabhupada's purport: a slight insult for a respectable family is sufficient to invoke grief. Therefore, a cultured man should always be careful in dealing with worshipful family members. 47. My lord, do not make the wife of Dronacharya cry like me. I am aggrieved for the death of my sons. She need not cry constantly like me. Sympathetic good lady as she was, Srimati Draupadi did not want to put the wife of Dronacharya in the same position of childlessness, both from the point of motherly feelings and from the respectable position held by the wife of Dronacharya. Text 48. If the kingly administrative order, being unrestricted in sense control, offends the Brahmana order and enrages them, then the fire of that rage burns up the whole body of the royal family and brings grief upon them all. Purport: the Brahmana order of society, or the spiritually advanced caste or community, and the members of such highly elevated families were always held in great esteem by the other subordinate castes, namely the administrative kingly order, the mercantile order, and the laborers. 49. Suta Goswami said, O Brahmanas, King Yudhishthira fully supported the statements of the queen, which were in accordance with the principles of religion and were justified, glorious, full of mercy and equity, and without duplicity. Prabhupada's purport: Maharaj Yudhishthir, who is the son of Dharmaraj or Yamaraj, fully supported the words of Queen Draupadi in asking Arjuna to release Ashvatthama. One should not tolerate the humiliation of a member of a great family. Arjuna and his family were indebted to the family of Dronacharya because of Arjuna's learning the military science from him. If ingratitude were shown to such a benevolent family, it would not be at all justified from the moral standpoint. The wife of Dronacharya, who is the half body of the great soul, must be treated with compassion, and she should not be put into grief because of her son's death. That is compassion. Such statements by Draupadi are without duplicity because actions should be taken with full knowledge. The feeling of equality was there because Draupadi spoke out of her personal experience. A barren woman cannot understand the grief of a mother. Draupadi was herself a mother, and therefore her calculation of the depth of Kripi's grief was quite to the point. And it was glorious because she wanted to show proper respect to a great family. 50. Nakula and Sahadev, the younger brothers of the king, and also Satyaki, Arjuna, the personality of Godhead Lord Sri Krishna, son of Devaki, and the ladies and others all unanimously agreed with the king. 51. Bhima, however, angrily disagreed with them and recommended killing this culprit, who had murdered sleeping children for no purpose and for neither his nor his master's interest. 52. Chaturbhuja, the four-armed one, or the personality of Godhead, after hearing the words of Bhima, Draupadi, and others, saw the face of his dear friend Arjuna, and he began to speak as if smiling. Purport: Lord Sri Krishna had two arms, and why he is designated as four-armed is explained by Sridhar Swami. Both Bhima and Draupadi held opposite views about killing Ashwatthama. Bhima wanted him to be immediately killed, whereas Draupadi wanted to save him. We can imagine Bhima ready to kill while Draupadi is obstructing him. And in order to prevent both of them, the Lord discovered another two arms. Originally, the primeval Lord Sri Krishna displays only two arms, but in his Narayana feature, he exhibits four. In his Narayana feature, he resides with his devotees in the Vaikuntha planets, while in his original Sri Krishna feature, he resides in the Krishna Loka planet, far, far above the Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky. Therefore, if Sri Krishna is called Chaturbhuja, there is no contradiction. If need be, he can display hundreds of arms, as he exhibited in his Vishvarup shown to Arjuna. Therefore, one who can display hundreds and thousands of arms can also manifest four whenever needed. When Arjuna was perplexed about what to do with Ashvatthama, Lord Sri Krishna, as the very dear friend of Arjuna, voluntarily took up the matter just to make a solution. And he was smiling also. 53 to 54. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna said, a friend of a Brahmana is not to be killed, but if he is an aggressor, he must be killed. All these rulings are in the scriptures, and you should act accordingly. You have to fulfill your promise to your wife, and you must also act to the satisfaction of Bhima Sen and me. Purport: Arjuna was perplexed because Ashvatthama was to be killed as well as spared, according to different scriptures cited by different persons. As a Brahma Bandhu, or a worthless son of a Brahmana, Ashvatthama was not to be killed, but he was at the same time an aggressor also. And according to the rulings of Manu, an aggressor, even though he be a Brahmana, and what to speak of an unworthy son of a Brahmana, is to be killed. Dronacharya was certainly a Brahmana in the true sense of the term, but because he stood in the battlefield, he was killed. But although Ashvatthama was an aggressor, he stood without any fighting weapons. The ruling is that an aggressor, when he is without weapon or chariot, cannot be killed. All these were certainly perplexities. Besides that, Arjuna had to keep the promise he had made before Draupadi, just to pacify her. And he also had to satisfy both Bhima and Krishna, who advised killing him. This dilemma was present before Arjuna, and the solution was awarded by Krishna. If you want to go on, you have to read.
I find it so fascinating that Krishna and Bhima were on side of killing him. Srila, Srila Suta Goswami
Yeah.
said, just then Arjuna could understand the motive of the Lord by his equivocal orders, and thus with his sword he severed both hair and jewel from the head of Ashwatthama. Srila Prabhupada purport. Contradictory orders of different persons are impossible to carry out. Therefore, compromise was selected by Arjuna by his sharp intelligence, and he separated a jewel from the head of the Ashwatthama. This was as good as cutting off his head, and yet his life was saved for all practical purposes. Here, Ashwatthama is indicated as twice born. Certainly, he was twice born, but he fell down from his position, and therefore he was properly punished. Text 56. He, Ashwatthama, had already lost his bodily luster due to infanticide, and now, moreover, having lost the jewel from his head, he lost even more strength. Thus, he was unbound and driven out of the camp. Thus, being insulted, humiliated, Ashwatthama was simultaneously killed and not killed by the intelligence of Krishna and Arjuna. Cutting the hair from his head, depriving him of his wealth, and deriving him from his residence are prescribed punishments for a relative of a Brahmana. There is no injunction for killing the body. Thereafter, the sons of 58, thereafter the sons of Pandu and Draupadi, overwhelmed with grief, performed the proper ritual for the dead bodies of their relatives. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the first canto, 7th chapter of Srimad Bhagwatam, entitled Son of Drona Punished. Wow, we're on to a very good chapter now. Prayers of Queen Kunti and Parikshit saved. Sutta Goswami said, thereafter Pandavas, desiring to deliver water to the dead relatives who had desired it, went to Ganges with Draupadi. The ladies walked in front. Srila Prabhupada. To date, it is a custom in Hindu society to go to Ganges or any other sacred rivers to take bath when death occurs in the family. Each of the family member pours out a potful of Ganges water for the departed souls and walks in procession with ladies in front. The Pandavas also followed the rules more than 5,000 years ago. Lord Shri Krishna, being a cousin of the Pandavas, was also amongst the family members. 2. Having lamented over them and sufficiently offered Ganges water, they bathed in the Ganges, whose water is sanctified due to being mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. See, there sat the king of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhishthir, along with his younger brothers and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kunti, Draupadi, and all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there. Ship was spoken. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought between family members, and thus all affected persons were also family members like Maharaj Yudhishthir, brothers Kunti, Draupadi, Subhadra, Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, and her daughters in law, etc. All the principal dead bodies were in some way or other related with each other, and therefore the family grief was combined. Lord Krishna was also one of them, as a cousin of the Pandavas and the nephew of Kunti, as well as a brother of Subhadra, etc. The Lord therefore was equally sympathetic towards all of them, and therefore he began to pacify them befittingly. Text 4. Citing the stringent laws of the Almighty and their reactions upon living beings, Lord Shri Krishna and the Munis began to pacify those who were shocked and affected. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The stringent laws of nature under the order of Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be altered by any living entity. The living entities are eternally under the subjugation of the Almighty Lord. The Lord makes all the laws and orders, and these laws and orders are generally called dharma or religion. No one can create any religious formula. Bona fide religion is to abide by the Lord, by the orders of the Lord. The Lord's orders are clearly declared in Bhagavad Gita. Everyone should follow him only or his order, and that will make all happy, both materially and spiritually. As long as we are in material world, our duty is to follow the orders of the Lord. And if by the grace of the Lord we are liberated from the clutches of the material world, then in a liberated stage, also we can render transcendental loving service unto the Lord. In our material stage, we can see neither ourselves nor the Lord for want of spiritual vision. But when we are liberated from material affection and are situated in our original spiritual form, we can see both ourselves and the Lord face to face. Mukti means to be reinstated in one's original spiritual status after giving up the material conception of life. Therefore, human life is specially meant for qualifying ourselves for the spiritual liberty. Unfortunately, under the influence of the illusory material energy, we accept this spot life of only a few years as a permanent existence and thus become illusioned by possessing so-called country, home, land, children, wife, community, wealth, etc., which are false representations created by Maya, illusion. And under the direction of Maya, we fight with one another to protect these false possessions. By cultivating spiritual knowledge, we can realize that we have nothing to do with all this material paraphernalia. Then, at once, we become free from material attachment. This clearance of the misgivings of the material existence is one state. Material existence. This clearance of the misgivings of material existence at once takes place by association with the Lord's devotees, who are able to inject the transcendental sound in the depths of the bewildered heart and thus make one practically liberated from all lamentation and illusion. Amazing. That is the summary of pacifying measures for those affected by the reactional stringent material laws exhibited in the form of birth, death, old age, disease, which are insoluble factors of material existence. The victims of war, namely the family members of the Kurus, were lamenting the problems of the death, and Lord pacified them on the basis of the knowledge. Prabhu, would you like to take rest or continue a bit more?
You? I'm flexible.
Continue.
I'm flexible.
Okay. We'll do a couple verses and then we'll read in the morning also, so it's okay. Fifth verse. The clever Duryodhana and his party cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhishthira and had no enemy, who had no enemy. By the grace of the Lord, what is the name of Yudhishthira, which means he had no enemy? Ajatashatru. Okay, Ajatashatru. By the grace of the Lord, the recovery was executed, and the unsurplus kings who joined with Duryodhana were killed by him. Others also died, their duration of life having decreased for the rough handling of hair of Queen Draupadi. Srila Prabhupada spoke. In the glorious days of before the advent of age of Kali, the Brahmanas, the cows, the women, the children, the old men were properly giving protection. First, the protection of Brahmanas maintains the institution of Varna and Ashram, the most scientific culture for attainment of spiritual life. The protection of cows um, maintains the most miraculous form of food, i.e., milk, which for maintaining the finer tissues of the brain for understanding higher aims of life. The protection of women maintains the chastity of society by which we can get good generation of peace, tranquility and progress of life. The protection of children gives human form of life best chance to prepare the way of liberty from material bondage. Such protection of children being begins from the very day of begetting a children by the purificatory process of Garbhadhana Samskara, the beginning of pure life. The protection of old men gives them a chance to prepare themselves for better life after death. This complete outlook is based on factors leading to successful humanity as against the civilization of polished cats and dogs. The killing of the above mentioned innocent creatures is totally forbidden because even by insulting them, one loses one's life duration. Okay? In the age of Kali, they are not properly protected, and their duration of life of the present generation is shortened considerably. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that when the women became unchaste for want for proper protection, they are unwanted. There are unwanted children called Varna Sankara. To insult a chaste woman means to bring about disaster in the duration of life. Dussasana, a brother of Duryodhana, insulted Draupadi, an ideal chaste lady, and therefore the miscreants died untimely. These are some of the stringent laws of the Lord mentioned above. So small text 6. Lord Shri Krishna caused Lord Shri Krishna caused three well performed Ashwamedha yagnas, house sacrifices, to be conducted by Maharaj Yudhishthir, and thus caused his virtuous fame to be glorified in all directions, like that of Indra, he who had performed 100 such sacrifices. This is something like the preface of the performance of Ashwamedha Yagna by Maharaj Yudhishthira. The comparison of Maharaj Yudhishthira to the King of Heaven is significant. The King of Heaven is thousands and thousands of times greater than Maharaj Yudhishthira in opulence, yet the fame of Maharaj Yudhishthira was not less. The reason is that Maharaj Yudhishthira was a pure devotee of the Lord, and by his grace only was King Yudhishthira on the level of the King of Heaven. Even though he performed only 3 yagnas, where the King of Heaven performed hundreds, that is the prerogative of the devotee of the Lord. The Lord is equal to everyone, but a devotee of the Lord is more glorified because he is always in touch with the all great. The sun rays are equally distributed, but still there are some places which are always dark. That is not due to the sun, but to the receptive power. Similarly, those who are cent percent devotees of the Lord get full-fledged mercy of the Lord, which is always equally distributed everywhere. No, I like it how Srila Prabhupada says cent percent instead of 100%. I like it. We can do 1, 2, 3. 3 more we can do and then we can stop. Lord Shri Krishna then prepared for his departure. he invited the sons of Pandu after having been worshipped by the Brahmanas, headed by Srila Vyasadeva. The Lord also reciprocated greetings. Apparently, Lord Sri Krishna was a Kshatriya and was not worshipable by the Brahmanas, but the Brahmanas present there, headed by Srila Vyasadeva, all knew him to be the personality of Godhead and therefore they worshipped him. The Lord reciprocated the greetings just to honor the social order of that a Kshatriya is obedient to the orders of a Brahmana. Although Lord Sri Krishna was always offered the respects due to the Supreme Lord from all responsible quarters, the Lord never deviated from the customary usages between the four orders of the society. The Lord purposely observed all the social customs so that others would follow him in the future. Text 8. As soon as he seated on the chariot to start for Dwarka, he saw Uttara hurrying towards him in fear. Srila Prabhupada's purport. All the members of the family of Pandavas were completely dependent on the protection of the Lord, and therefore the Lord protected all of them in all circumstances. The Lord protects everyone, but one who depends completely upon Him is specially looked after by the Lord. The Father is more attentive to the little son who is exclusively dependent on the Father. Text 9. Uttara said, O Lord of the Lords, O Pahi Pahi Mahayogin Deva Deva Jagatpate, Nayanam Tvad Abhayam Pase, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam. Uttara said, O Lord of the Lord, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality. Pahi Pahi Mahayogin Deva Deva Jagatpate. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The material world is the world of duality in contrast with the oneness of the absolute realm. The world of duality is composed of matter and spirit, whereas the absolute world is complete spirit, without any tinge of material qualities. In the dual world, everyone is falsely trying to become the master of the world, whereas the absolute world, the Lord is the absolute Lord, and all others are his absolute servitors. In the world of duality, everyone is envious of all others, and death is inevitable due to the dual existence of matter and spirit. The Lord is only shelter of fearlessness for the surrendered soul. One cannot save himself from the cruel hands of death in the material world without having surrendered himself at the lotus feet. One cannot save himself from the cruel hands of death in the material world without having surrendered himself at the lotus feet of the Lord. I think 10th we'll do tomorrow. I would like to read more, but let's do 10 tomorrow. Because now Krishna is gonna save and it's a long past time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Shila Gurudev.